department has done their job.
Well, they cleaned it up.
No. File an insurance claim for $2,500 to the person if they arrested them.
Okay, because the light's down. It's right at the first bump out as you're heading east after the
It's
Y.
not the median?
No, it was over on the right-hand side. You know that bump out right after the Y, right across from Union Street?
Yeah, the one that's by that, it used to be where
Across from Union Street. The other side,
that
on the
hole that was
riverside.
just
That's the second
replaced.
time that's been hit, that post.
2,000, oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's not a tree money.
No, that's one of the architectural posts.
I shouldn't do that.
And then apparently she hit that.
That's one of the what posts? What?
That's one of the architectural lights.
Bring that up.
Right. It's owned by Winston.
Apparently she hit that, went across somehow, and ended up on the sidewalk.
Jack, Linda's not here. Are you moving down or are you staying?
Oh, Linda's not coming?
Nope.
Yeah, I gotta go to that side of town now.
I get to sit closer to you, Steve.
All right. Today is Monday, December 19th, 2022. It's a little after 7. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Moorhart.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
Stephen Sedlak. Jack Bork.
Selectwoman Linda Grappo is excused. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Does anyone have anything? We are going to move item number 9 up in front of the executive session, number 8. So finance director's report will be 8, and executive session number 1 will be 9. Anything else? Can I have an approval of minutes for our regular Board of Selectmen's meeting for December 5th?
So moved.
Thank you, Candace. Second. Thank you, Candy. Any discussion?
Yes, there's an omission on the second page under item 8, boards and commissions. What you see there, what was also said was, we received a application from David Lapointe, and I mentioned during the meeting that we would accept his application for consideration as the first step in our process, and that was left out of the minutes.
I'd also like to, for item 5, for citizens' comments, I was wondering if we could add that the town manager advised the concerned party that they handed over the information for the study for the Torrington Health Department. That was in regard to the electromagnetic radiation. So he did respond and say it was handed over. So I'd like that to be added, that it was given to Torrington Health to look into.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anything else? All in favor? 6-0, unanimous, thank you. Moving on to number 5, Josh?
Absolutely. So with us tonight in the audience of a couple months now, but has been an excellent addition to the team, we have Bill Petroface. And Bill, if you would like to come up and to the front here. Bill's joining us from Torrington, where he had a very successful career as contractor, and before joining us as the building official here in Winchester. So I'd like to give Bill the floor for a few minutes. Tell us about yourself. Tell us why you chose Winchester and how you've liked it so far, and then you can open it up for any questions if you'd
Okay.
like.
Well, thank you all for considering me for the position. I was a contractor in Torrington for 30-plus years, and that takes its toll, physically. And I was to the point last year where I had to have back surgery, so I said it was time to do something else. So I said, well, how do I still use the skill set that I have and apply it in a different fashion? So I was able to take the building official examination, last February because I had a lot of time to recover and study. So that's what I did, and I was able to pass it. Even with a very abbreviated course, I only did a 40-hour class, but just the knowledge that I built up over those 30 years is what got me through it. Actually, a good friend of mine, Bill Lemoyne, who I think a lot of you know, he's the one who contacted me, and he knew that the position here was available. And so I was kind of still struggling. Even after the surgery, I lost a lot of strength, wasn't able to quite do things as quickly as I would have liked to. So I said, well, it's time to move on, time to do something else. So the opportunity came up. I contacted Josh. Josh contacted me. Came up, we had an interview, and here I am. So, and believe me, I learn something new every day. I always tell Josh that all the time, and it's a learning process, and I'm getting there. I have to get my full certification because I'm still an assistant building official. So I was applied to, and I was accepted to the pilot training program for the next step for the building official. So I'm going to be starting that in January. I'll be going to Hartford 2 days a week to continue my education. It's a very intense class, a lot of information. There's about 3 to 4 hours of homework every night. So, but that'll prepare me to take the building official exam and be successful at it. I want to just try to do it once and be successful. Then I can, that'll let me have a little more control over what goes on here rather than relying on other people to come in and sign off on things for me. But it's been interesting. You know, it's from going from swinging a hammer to dealing with the public and dealing with all the different issues and situations that arise every day. I know it's instead of being physically exhausted, I'm mentally exhausted. So it's going to be past my bedtime by the time I get home tonight. So, but I'm enjoying it. You know, I'm here. I'm a quick learner, and I'm good with people. I enjoy dealing with people. I was in sales for 10 years, so that helped me along in my contracting work was how to be able to sell something to somebody. So that's always helpful. And that's about it I have right now. Any questions?
Well, Bill, I just want to say you're greatly understating, first of all, your experience, but moreover, your ability to work with the public. And Bill, as Bill came on, we talked a lot about the fact that we need to have our land use office be very customer service focused and oriented. Bill's been a tremendous part of making that, bringing that into reality. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Josh. Thank you.
Candace?
Yes.
You came on board when we didn't have the online permitting system.
Yes.
How has that helped you?
Oh, it's tremendously. I would spend a lot of time searching for files. You know, you have to search through cabinets, and then you'd have to try to find the information. A situation came up last week. Somebody was closing out, they wanted to do a closing on a house, and they just had the roof repaired. So I said, well, we need, a certificate of approval for this. So I just punched the address in, and then all the information just pops up in front of me.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's fantastic. It
Great.
really is, yeah. And I'm trying to force people to use it. Not force them,
No, force
sell
it.
it to them,
No,
because I'm
yeah.
good at that. And once they figure it out, there's still that apprehension with people who aren't quite computer savvy, because I'm not. That's my biggest challenge is all the IT stuff. But when I tell them, well, you can go home. You don't have to do it here. You can go home and you can fumble around on your computer at home. And sure enough, they figure it out, and the application comes in the next day, and then it just moves everything along quicker.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's money well spent. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Bill, before you retired from your other work, did you do a lot of contracting work in Winstead?
I did not. I did mostly Litchfield, Harwinton, Goshen. I did some work up here over the years. I did a few. I did so many I can't remember. I got to the point where people would come up to me and they would say, "Oh, how you doing?" I had no clue who they were because you're in so many places. They, "Oh, you painted my house 22 years ago." I didn't know them from Adam, but that's a good problem to have. That I was always busy. I never ran out of work. But I did, a few things up here.
And were you both in the framing as well as
I
like
did
plumbing and
everything.
electrical?
I used to tell people, well, I couldn't do the plumbing and electrical. I knew how, because you need the proper licenses to do that. You can do that on my own house. I wired my own house. I plumbed my own house. But I used to tell people, if I can't do it, you don't need it. So, not to brag,
Don't need
but
a
I did
roof.
everything. I did new construction. I did renovation. I did historic restoration for the Torrington Historical Society. I worked for the federal government at the the Coast Guard Academy. I build furniture, I build cabinets, you know, I did more roofs than I care to remember, so I did a little bit of everything. I did some industrial work, building petition walls in factories, you know, so it ran the gamut, so I have a pretty good wealth of knowledge in all different types of applications.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Bill? Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you very much, and I'm gonna take my leave and go to bed. Thanks, folks.
Moving on to item number 6, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. May speak once.
Good evening, Frank Oliveri, 108 Shore Drive. I'd like to talk about the upcoming January 3rd meeting on the Public Works bill that was passed last May. I read some articles in the paper. I don't know how accurate they are, but what I would ask the board here is to only spend the money on the most critical projects you have. That is the money that was passed in May as part of the 5-year Public Works bill, and not go out and borrow more money on a 20-year bond. I would then listen to Jim and your experts on the board here and do the most critical project first, which I would think from being on the Inland Waterworks Committee, Wetlands Committee, Jim has spoken twice there about the projects, and I believe the water main one would be the most critical to service the community. The second one might be the Crystal Lake tanks, and then the last one, if necessary, the abandonment of the east side tank. But I would ask the board only to spend the money that was approved in May. Finish the water main project, find out what the change orders are, the extensions are, and then go on to the next project. Thank you.
My name is Willie Platt, West Wakefield Boulevard, here to talk about the revaluation. A lot of people haven't gotten their notices yet on the revaluation, and the first time to appeal your assessment is tomorrow. And there's only like 3 days between now and Christmas, and a couple days they're doing it after, between Christmas and New Year's. You know, during the holidays, it's a very hard time for people to gather the information they need to appeal their assessments. I think the town should look into adding more days to it, since the assessment is late coming out, I think, and it's not fair to the taxpayers not to be able to appeal their assessments. And the second one is about, some people have experienced extremely high increases, and to do future planning, I think the grand list before the revaluation and the grand list after the revaluation should be made public, along with the budget numbers that were used to calculate the mill rate, so that way people can calculate the financial impact on their finances. You know, a lot of people are living on fixed incomes, retired, and they need to plan, and now's the time they need to plan for next year. So I encourage you to look at those 2 things. Thank you.
David LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winsted, Connecticut. I just want to say, first of all, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah to all our Jewish friends out there. And I wanted to also say that I want to thank Jake, that is Jack Bork, for speaking last Selectmen's meeting on behalf of the taxpayers and those who are struggling. So I think that it behooves us to understand what these 2 good citizens who came here tonight to speak in regards to the reevaluation, as well as the water and sewer. As you know, January 3rd, we're having a special meeting here, and right here in this room, unless it's going to be moved to Pearson. Also, on January 7th is going to be the referendum. I want to say that originally back in May, as this gentleman said, back in 2021, May 25th, we got a special notice from Water and Sewer. It went out to people, and it said and it told us that consequently there would be no rate increase required. As of January 1st, 2021, all adequate funding for debt service would be for the the 6.2 million, and this would be covered, so there would be no increase. That was in 2021, we were told that by John Mascotti. Now, we got a legal notice that was posted in the town's clerk office on March 24th, 2022, and what this told us was that the water and sewer rates were going to go up, okay? Basically, we're going to double within 5 years. But we were told back in 2021 that there was going to be no rate increase for the rate increasers. So subsequently, I think it goes back to Jack Bork's point last meeting where he said that we should keep tax increase when it comes to the reevaluation. Candy Perez has been spot on, right on in regards to this, trying to get the balance. And, you know, in Josh's estimated calculation for the annual mill rate with the bond, it's a plus 0.21. So if you add that, then we're going to at least 71 mils, or 0.71 of a mil, with the 21 if you add the 50 that, you know, the selectmen said they're going to try to keep the town manager at that. But we don't know what the schools are going to do. Let me just say that I'm tired of being lied to, and I'm not saying that you're lying to anybody. But water and sewer, I've sat in on meetings over here in the Blue Room that they told us we were going to get a rebate. We were going to get $10 off after all the bonds were paid. Well, the bonds have been paid. Granted, I get it. Things have to be fixed, like you said, the water pipes, the tanks, which need to be either repainted or they're corrosive on the inside and they need to be relined. I get it. But I'm tired of being lied to that rates aren't going to increase. They are. They're going to double. I mean, this paper shows it. It's signed by him. The estimated for 2022, and by the way, like Jack Bork, I got my assessment, and I'm going to be appealing it because that rate that I got is a high assessment. You know, I think you got to take in, thank God gas prices are coming down. But thank you for, I think I'm at my 3 minutes. Thank you for listening, and I hope you take into consideration all these things. How much can we afford? Can we afford another 2.3 million? You know, you keep saying, and I heard it, and it's in the paper, that, oh, taxpayers aren't going to be paying for this. Well, yes, only the ratepayers are going to be paying for it because they're going to be paying the increases, which we were told we weren't going to get increases, but now we are. So I get it. You guys are in, and gals are in a very difficult situation. It's not all your fault. I don't blame you. You walked into this, and things have to get done. So God bless you all. I hope you have a good holiday.
If I could add just a quick point of clarification for the resident. We do have a separate sewer rate and a separate water rate, and both of those budgets operate independently. They are totally separated and have different accounts that those payments come out of. So what you read, I just want to make sure it's clear, is not a lie. There has been no increase in the water rates. There has been an increase in the sewer rates to try and catch up with the rate that the water department has seen. So I understand that's confusing, and I do apologize if there has been any confusion out there, but I do want to clarify now that the water rates have remained stable and will remain stable under this proposal. It's the sewer rates that have had to creep up to meet the increasing demands down at the sewer plant. But
Water
thank you
rates
for
are
your
going to double, and sewer rates. The sewer rates
So
are
again,
gonna
they're
double.
separate rates. The sewer rates are increasing because of instances at the sewer plant. The bonds that have been issued both in 2021 and that could be issued in 2023 for this work only have to do with the water side of the water and sewer operation. So 2 separate rates and 2 separate budgets, water and sewer.
Yeah, but one taxpayer, one ratepayer who pays.
I understand, but I want to make sure that it has been presented clearly. I understand.
We have been lied to. We've been lied to by the Water Commission, but it's not.
Sorry, I'm not entertaining this, but I wanted to make sure that the facts are clear. Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you very much. A few things that I'll run through here in my report. First, we've been having more meetings with developers who are interested in some of the larger spaces that are currently vacant here in town. We've had, certainly there's renewed interest in the 10 Bridge Street building number 1. I think that you'll hear likely in the near future that there's a changing of hands and renewed interest in pursuing a type of development at that site, as well as others, so that's been very positive. We do still have a number of grants that we are pursuing, that we are considering pursuing, some of which would be pursued to try and decrease the burden on our upcoming budget, some of which would be pursued to try and pursue additional projects that have been on our to-do list, our wish list, for a long time that don't require match, which is all very positive, and I've outlined them here within this document. All town employees at this point in time have been issued ID cards. If you are a member of the public, I just want to reiterate for this one last time, and then I'll take it off my report. If you see a member of the town staff out in the real world, as we say, or if you see them here in town hall, you have every right to ask if they have identification on them. They should be able to provide that to you. If somebody is coming to inspect your house and they do not have, or any part of your property, and they do not have an ID card on them, please make a call to us, as those have been issued and should be carried at any point in time. So with personnel, we'll discuss the employee handbook a little bit later. As we announced at the last meeting, our Chief of Police, Chief Fitzgerald, has announced his retirement effective February 1st, 2023. We have now posted for that position. The due date for applications is in January. I know that a few people have already reached out to the town expressing a level of interest, so we've passed that information back along to them. And we've been circulating as widely as we can, especially thanks to the help of the State Chiefs Association. With revaluation, it's no secret, we've already discussed it here in this room, that the notices have gone out to households regarding their revaluations. If you have not received that notice, you can also go on the town's website on the home page. There's a button that says Assessor's Database. If you click on that and you search your property address, you will be able to find your new assessment. You will be able to compare that to your old assessment. For members of the public who aren't as familiar with this process, do know that when you're looking at any forms or when you're looking online at the database, you're going to see several different numbers. You're not looking at an appraised value for your house. That's the market rate as it's been set. Assessed values are 70%, approximately 70% of your appraised value. As per Connecticut general statutes, that's a separate number, and it needs to be compared. The 2022 number needs to be compared to your 2017 number. If you're looking at the database, the 2017 number will appear all the way at the bottom of the web page where your information exists. The 2022 information will appear at the top. And comparing those two numbers will show you the difference over the last 5 years between these last two revaluations. So I hope that helps. If anybody has questions about how to access that information, please reach out. We have our assessor's office is staffed. My office is staffed. We're happy to help you wherever you might be, and make sure that you're getting the assistance that you require. So with the Sue Grossman Greenway, I wanted to let everybody know we have applied several times in my tenure for different funding for the third phase of development. We had the first phase that came from the Torrington Town Line to Lanson Drive, and we had the second extension just continued down to the state's property, and this third phase should bring it all the way down into Winstead. The most recent state grant that we put out came back with a denial, but it came with a very specific letter that addressed the different things that they would like to see improved in future applications related to the Greenway. So that's very positive. One of those things is that they would like to see easements secured prior to funding being issued. which is
Been
a
saying
fair
that
point.
for 6 years. It has nothing to do with you.
Fair point, and we have now had, the town staff, I should say, have now had a meeting to identify which individuals need to be contacted to acquire those easements, and work has begun to acquire them. And I expect that that will start moving along, and contact will be made probably by the end of the month with some of those individuals. Regarding trainings, town staff continues to be trained to ensure that every member of our staff is as professional and as prepared for their work as possible. Recently, there was an advanced Microsoft Excel training through CCM that staff were able to take advantage of. Renewed sexual harassment training has been back in the state spotlight, and so back in ours, making sure that all members of the staff have had up-to-date modern training in that area. And training is always ongoing for our staff. With the union, we're going to discuss very soon that the clerical union has ratified the tentative agreement that was forged with them. So this is now in front of the Board of Selectmen for consideration tonight. And lastly, we do have a new website. It's provided by Civic Lift, which is a local company. It's now live. There are adjustments that need to be made. A few individuals, members of this board, members of the public have shown me that there are broken links in a couple areas, and that there's more information that needs to be corrected or provided. As you see that, please send it in to us. There are many pages, hundreds of pages on our website. We appreciate all the help that we can get in as individuals are combing through that for more info. So thank you for your help, and thank you for bearing with us. So there are a few upcoming events that you can read here within my report, but just to remind everybody that around the Christmas holiday and the New Year holiday, Town Hall is closed a couple of days, and the next regular Board of Selectmen meeting will be on a Tuesday because of the New Year holiday. It'll be Tuesday, January 3rd at 7 p.m. right here. And I can take any questions if you might have them.
Yeah, back to the reval again.
Yep.
There's a couple things. One, I think we need, who decides on the length of time for people to call in to make an appointment to have the informal hearing? Do we decide as a town, or is it by statute?
Ultimately, it's the revaluation company that has put out this sample time frame, and they work for us. So we're going to, but based on the commentary that I've heard.
So I would request that we extend that time.
Okay.
In through the beginning of the year, because I was looking at the contract for, if it was done when we had the other time frame that they were working on, that it looks like there might have been a little bit more time
Right.
in the past time frame than there is now. So if we can make that extension, I don't know if that well, you could just do it as the manager, or we could make a vote on it.
I'll call them first thing tomorrow.
And then
Well, can we know what the extension date, well, you'll put a communication about the extension
I
of the
will.
date. Thank you.
I will, of course. It will be to the whole public so
Right.
that everybody has an understanding of what that looks like.
And I think it's also important to, like, as Willie asked, and that we had talked about earlier today, you and I, about looking at what, and then with Anne Marie's help. Last year before the budget, we had the breakdown of residential, personal property, and cars to create something that we can't have the final mill rate until we have the budget, which won't be until the end of the third week in April, and then through the budget process. But we could have, based on the residential value, keeping the cars the way it is and personal property the way it is, we could have a ballpark mill rate. So we have 33 point something right now. How much will it drop to? Because people should also know that when the mill rate drops because of the property values went up, car taxes are going to also drop. So a car right now is valued at, or taxed at 32 mils based on the state number. So if we drop from 33 mils to, let's just say, 30 mils, that will also drop on the car, so people will pay less on their cars. And I think it's also important to remember that all these numbers are being driven by the market, which in Connecticut is what we're driven by, is right, the value that somebody would pay out there, or the value that your house to other houses, and it's driven by the market. Usually, towns are somewhat similar, a little bit different, but within towns. So it's driven by the market. It's not driven like a homestead act like they have in Florida, where you buy your house, it stays that value until you sell it. So what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the numbers that have gone up for everyone. So because everyone went up, the mill rate should drop. in the past, when the house values went down, the mill rate had to go up to do what's called equalizing the mill rate. And I think that's what public needs to know too, is that there's an equalized mill rate, that the same amount of taxes that we collected last year on a 33-point-something mill should be the starting point for us this year of where our taxes are by equalizing that mill rate. But we obviously won't have the specific one until a little bit later on, but we could have a little bit of a ballpark that would help people, as Willie said, plan and make sure that we are all cognizant, as we always are. I mean, I haven't sat here ever not being cognizant of a budget, but being cognizant with everything else that's, not just ours, but around us are doing, and I think some of that will be informative to get that moving.
Okay. Any other questions for Josh?
In regards to the new website, what we have not had in the past, I don't know if it has anything to do with the website, is we don't have projects, capital projects and project sections in our website. So let's take, for example, the Sue Grossman Greenway. That's going to be a new project. I'd like to see graphically what the Sue Grossman Greenway is supposed to be going to look towards, and a status update underneath that. If we've obtained a grant or not, or what easements are being looked at. Same with our roads. So, you've got 10,000 lists of roads under town manager, got 10,000 roads under public works. It only needs to be in one place, and it should be called the road project, and they click on, whatever we call it. For the next bond, whatever we call that project, and then the subset underneath that. It shouldn't be just like thousands of rows of PDF files. We should have the sidewalks identified, the areas, all that relate to the bond, and call these things projects. They're just not lists. So we really need to do better in organizing capital projects that are long-term projects, please.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Josh? Jack?
First of all, on the training for members of the town staff,
Yep.
I'd like to get involved in some of those trainings, like the Excel training. Our selectmen, since we do get paid minimal, we are considered part of that, or could I sit in on some of those training sessions?
Not only are you able to come in and sit with staff and be a part of those trainings, but anything that's offered by CCM is available to all elected officials as well, free of charge.
We need a badge.
Free of additional charge, I should say.
Where's our badge?
Would you all like badges?
I haven't received
You aren't
one.
usually
I'm
out in
an
the field doing
employee.
inspections, so I had a feeling everybody knew what you all looked like.
Well,
But certainly, if anybody here is interested in a particular area, how about that? A particular area of whether it be finance, whether it be budgets, whether it be Excel, things of that nature. Let me know what those interests are, and anytime there's a training coming up in those areas, I can make sure you're alerted.
Is
If
there
you
a
wanna notice-
possibility that you could just have it known to us that we're doing a training in the next month, and here's what we're doing?
I can do
So
that.
that, rather than asking for it, I know, okay, in this particular date, I'd like to make that training on that particular issue, if it's having to do with an Excel spreadsheet, or I'd like to get a little bit more training on that, but.
Okay.
Is that
You got it.
possible?
Yes.
And then if I know 30 days ahead of time, that I can work my schedule into your schedule.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. And I have an additional question on page 2. You did talk about the Gilbert study. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what's going on there and where that status is, and what results of the meetings that you've had so far on that?
So I included this to make sure that everybody had an understanding of what was going on. From my perspective, the study did not proceed in the way that I thought it would. In the first meeting that we had, both Todd and I attended on behalf of the town many months back. I don't know when it was, but in the summer. And we spoke about the fact that the State Department of Education was asked by the state legislature to look into the way that Gilbert was funded, was really the way that it was put. In order to conduct this study, they wanted to hear some initial feedback from us, which I think we provided very well. And then they said they would be back in touch to collect additional documents, information, data, and ask for input to some extent. So they came back, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and told us that the study had been completed, that essentially they had some ideas of how Winchester and Gilbert could move forward a little bit more harmoniously. They ran some of those ideas by us that they said would be outlined
Who's
in the
the
study.
us?
That us being representatives of the town, so Todd and I were a part of that, as well as representatives of the school system, the public education school system, and representatives of Gilbert. And in telling us that this is what the report was going to look like, we had the opportunity to make what I consider to be like a closing comment, which didn't have the chance to be that substantive. And we were told that we would receive a report before it was released to the public, so that we would have the opportunity to further review it and give further comment. So right now we are waiting for a written report. It's supposed to be to us before January 1st.
And can you give us some of the essence of what you found out?
The essence, it seems that the State Department of Education, when we last spoke with them, was of the opinion that Gilbert and the Winchester Public Schools would do very well to model their contract structure after the East Lyme-Salem shared services program, where Salem sends all of their kids following middle school, or actually following elementary school, I believe, to the middle and high school, or at least the high school in East Lyme. So their recommendation was really to forge a contract. Some of the concerns that I expressed included, but weren't limited to, the fact that you can't have equal bargaining, you can't have good faith bargaining if you don't have two entities that are on equal footing. For example, the state statute right now allows for Gilbert to set any tuition that it wants and requires the town to pay for it. How can you bargain a contract effectively if you have one entity in that arrangement that could always step aside and set whatever rate it is that they want without bargaining in that good faith? So those were some of the conversations that were had. They were very short, and we were told that the report was already done and that it would be forwarded to us.
When we did this report, weren't they going to take some insight from us in the process of that?
Yes.
Because we did send a letter to the State Department, and
actually,
was there no insight from us?
at the start of this, I don't believe that we were even on the initial emails to the state, from the state rather, to set up the initial email. We had to make sure that our voice was heard and that we were invited to that initial meeting. And we were told at that initial meeting that we would have, at least I was led to believe that we would have far more input than we ended up having.
So in essence, they're doing a report without any input from us.
That's my perception.
Minimal input from us.
Minimal?
So we didn't follow up after the first meeting and just give them information?
Well,
We didn't give them
we
anything?
did provide them with the letter that was passed by this board, so they had that in
Right.
hand. I did personally reach out and let Kathy Dempsey know at the state that I was available to speak or connect her with anybody that she needed, and I can provide that email if anybody wants to see it. And there was no contact after that point in time until very recently, within the last 3 or 4 weeks, when we were told that the report was done and that it would be shared with us before it went to the public.
Like a slap in the face, then, isn't it? I mean, we asked for something, we said we'd provide some input, and they'd like it, and we don't get any of that from the state?
I do think that the representatives of Gilbert and the schools were equally surprised, especially Gilbert, that there was never even an outreach for documents from that office. Now, that being said, it's the State Department of Education. They have many documents at their disposal already from these school systems, and they have access to a lot of information from a lot of different sources. However, yes, it was surprising to all of us.
I would also say that it's also going to be, it's a report that goes to the state legislature. The state legislature asks for the report because the state legislature will have to be the ones that act on that state statute that allows the endowed academies to set their tuition no matter what else has been decided.
Well, that was the purpose of our letter in the first place.
Right, it was the purpose of our letter to do that. So one of the issues that keeps popping up every time this subject comes up is Norwich Free Academy, which has a huge lobbying group. And then you have Woodstock Academy, which also has some lobbying group. But each of those is comprised of 5 sending towns or 7 sending towns. And we've been through all the information before, that, you know, when you look at the funding levels, which I'm assuming the State Department of Education did in terms of total dollars from the public and for them from each town, but total dollars from the public versus the contributions from the endowed academy, I believe they have that. So perhaps that's the information that they were looking at, but it still goes back to the state legislature to make decisions. Even though the State Department of Ed could write a report, it will still be the state legislature that will or will not take up the request.
And you're expecting that before the first of the year,
That's what we were told by the state.
which is only like 20 days away, 10 days away.
Any other questions, Josh? Moving on to Finance Director's report.
Good evening. I'm just going to start off by just kind of jumping on with the reval. I did send a couple of links to my staff to have them do a little more research as to the information that is out on other towns' website as to the whole reval process. Some FAQs, et cetera, that, some residents understand the whole process and some residents don't. I think it would behoove us to kind of beef up our section on reval. There's a link on the front page of the town website that just says that basically that the reval is complete, but there's very limited information. So I have tasked that to my staff to do a little research in the coming days and have them put something together for review so that we can get a little more information up on the website. So I will work with Josh and with the assessor's office staff to do that. And then to your point on the grand list and on the grand list calculation, we will, as we move forward with the budget, just so you have an idea of where we are once we have those numbers. I can certainly drop those into the schedule that I have in terms of the personal property, real estate, motor vehicle, to see just where we're at right now, even before we finish the budget, to kind of see what, based on 2023's budget, with the new numbers, where would we land as a potential mill rate, just as a starting point to kind of give you some ideas. And that worksheet that I work on for the mill rate, we can throw in any numbers. We can put in any numbers that you want to see. We can certainly move the number for the BAA as much as you want to put in a number that will, maybe something realistic. And I know we did that with the budget last year. We put in an estimated number that would bring our grand list to where we think it's going to be after the BAA, so that we're not starting with an overly, I don't want to say aggressive, but an overstated value. We want to come down to something that's somewhere realistic, so that gives you an idea before we even finish the budget, and even before we present you with the budget, we can work on that. Another item before I get into this is we track all of our utilities, particularly our electricity bills, on a monthly basis. I have asked our budget analyst on a monthly basis to begin updating, particularly for the electricity rates, where we are year to date. When you look at your reports, your monthly reports, you're going to see those line items with the encumbrances. Almost every single one of those electricity line items is almost over budget already, and we're 5 months in. And those numbers that you see in the November for some of those line items, particularly for the solar accounts, those do not even reflect 5 months worth of electricity. So just so that, number one, we can help our departments to budget. I don't even know if budget correctly is the right word, but try to come up with good forecasts for next year, building in what we think a reasonable percentage is for the electricity increase that we think is going to come down, but also for you to be able to see the trends over the last year and a half, what's been happening with all of our electricity rates. And we're seeing it on a monthly basis. It's jumping month by month by month by month in significant intervals. And I think that will better help us to try to budget and put some good numbers into our next year's budget so that we have an idea where we're going.
Fuel also.
Yes, so the ones that were, electricity is a big one because we have, and particularly on the solar accounts, tracking the solar too. But the ones that we're looking at, electricity, heating fuel, gas, diesel, the generator fuel lines, any of the utility fuel, the items that we know are going up. So hopefully we can present that to you, hopefully on a monthly basis, just so you can kind of get an idea of what this inflation is doing to our budget and what we're facing as we head into the budget season.
And Maria, I would ask you also, as you track the cost, would you also track the usage? Because when I do that at home, I can look at how much usage I did in March or April or May, and then the cost of that and compare it
Well,
with
our
the previous
biggest issue is not necessarily on the usage side, it's on the delivery side. Yeah, so if you looked at the detail,
I
it's the
understand that.
delivery side that we seem
No,
to be.
I understand that the cost of delivery is going up because Eversource can do that. But I am also looking at the question of if the usage is remaining the same and the cost is going up, I'd just like to see that because I think it's important to know that we're not using any more electricity. In fact, many times we're using less, but the delivery cost and the total cost of is expensive. So
And
could you
we can
track some of
certainly,
that?
we can certainly do that. I just want to caution you that that's going to take us a whole lot longer to collect all that data because we have upwards of 30-something
Yeah, maybe
electrical
going
accounts.
forward.
I mean, unless you want to just see some of the bigger ones, but if you want to see all the smaller ones, if you want to
The
pick
smaller
through them,
ones, you know,
yeah.
the bigger usage areas.
We
would
can
be
look,
interesting.
definitely look at the bigger ones. I think it would make sense. That's really driving a lot of the budgets, Public Works, the town buildings, et cetera.
Right, because as I said, when I do it at home, I look at the usage and I know the delivery costs have gone, and yet my per kilowatt hour is remaining the same. I know that because
Yeah.
I bought into a contract.
Yeah.
And so has the town, correct?
Yes.
So,
Not on, obviously not on the electricity, but yes.
well, for the kilowatt hour, could you buy into a long-term?
We have a certain rate depending on the usage, depending on where we're at. There are different rate structures that Eversource determines for the town, and they will say, okay, you're at rate 30 or whatever the rate numbers are, but Eversource determines those.
We're not buying electricity from any of the other sources then?
I think we have a couple that we have delivery services from.
I mean, I've seen some of the
Alternate.
other, not delivery, because
The Energy
Eversource
Commission,
has
Yeah.
delivery.
the Energy Commission used to do that for the town. I don't know if they still do that anymore.
We have a couple of alternate suppliers, I believe, but the main one is, I think, Eversource. We have a couple of smaller ones. I think that we get bills from a couple of small companies.
That's just
Yeah.
a question. I know we're all taking a look at how we can cut some of those costs. And as you say, the delivery cost, Eversource is just going to pile it on. And unless the state legislature or the departments cut that back, we're still going to pay it. Just to
Yeah,
balance.
we can certainly do that, but I want to at least get some numbers on paper of just of where we are, just the basics, and then we can go back and we can pull as staff have time available and they can fill in some blanks for us.
And I recognize your staff is
Yep.
minimal to do these things.
No, they certainly can do it. I just want to, I want to start with the overall numbers, just so we have them and so we can assist our departments in budgeting for next year. And obviously so that we know where we're going and so that you have an idea of where the electricity, where all of the utility rates, and in particular too, we have to have some of this done for January 3rd so that the conversation I'm sure will come up between the water bond and the rates that are going up across the board.
Thank you.
So where we are as of November 30th of 2022, we are 42% into the fiscal year. Total property taxes year-to-date, $15.16 million, which is 58.29% of our budget. That's in comparison to 14.41 million, which was 58.98% of last year's budget. Our past due collections this year to date, $232,000, which is 77% of the budget, compared to $310,000 in the prior year, which was 103%. And I have noted in previous months that we did have a large tax receipt in the prior year, which does factor into the 2022 numbers. Total revenues year to date, $18.48 million, 51.27% of the budget, compared to the prior year revenues of 17.49%, which was 50.14% of our budget. Total expenditures year to date, $10.94 million, which is 30% of our budget, And that's in comparison to 13.81 million of 39.58%. Municipal aid received this month. We received almost 168,000 in pilot money. Cash flow as of November 30th was 13.45 million. 5.3 million of that is invested. 3 million of that in the Northwest Community Bank sweep, and 2.3 million of that in STIF. I do want to note that our treasurer moved approximately $4.5 million into the Northwest Community Bank money market account because they are paying a higher rate than our investment accounts right now. That yielded us in November about an additional $6,000 of investment income by her moving that money over to the money market account. Our November capital expenditures, we had $186,000 that was spent towards the Sue Grossman Greenway work, a little over $12,000 for our annual road maintenance, and $6,976 for the Walker Field dugout. Hinsdale right now, we are still waiting on our reimbursement request number 6, which was submitted back in October. And I will be working with the Board of Education on Thursday to put in an additional request number 7, which I expect the reimbursement on that will be $689,762. Total costs year to date with encumbrances, which is very minimal. I believe we only have about $7,000 still encumbered on the project, is $15,779,891. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. On the, you're just talking about electrical rates and every department being over. So what's the plan for the overages? Where is it gonna come from? And should we be, because I noticed we're having some line item transfers tonight. Should we be transferring money to other things if we know we're gonna have an electric load? And especially in the department that we are going to be transferring in with, you know, the lights at Ryan Field and some of the other light and the usage there. Do we have a handle on what those increases are going to be for energy use before we transfer available monies?
You mean across the board for the whole general fund budget? Or within one department are you looking
I
at?
think within every department, is there a plan to cover the increased costs? I mean, where are the increased costs going to be paid from? And because, I mean, it's unusual to have a line item transfer at this time of year. Usually we get closer to April, we start making line item transfers. And so as we start looking at transferring money, like if we transfer all this money tonight, is there going to be a load on the electric rates that we're going to have to find money for later on?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't have a crystal ball. My opinion, and this is up to you. This is your decision because you approve the transfers at the end of the day. Me, on a very conservative note, I would hold off on transfers that are going to, induce additional spending. That's my opinion.
But you signed off on these, so.
My signature says that there's money in the budget. So yes, there is money within the line item budget, but it's not mine to give an opinion whether they should or should not. You should or should not approve the transfer. As the finance director, and knowing that the rates continue to go up and up and up and up, and that we don't want to go into deficit for the full year, my opinion, if I had the yes or no, I probably wouldn't, but I don't sign off on it.
Well, I guess I would then, I think that I would ask the town manager then to bring us a plan in January in terms of how these overruns on electricity in each of the departments is going to be handled as we move through to the end of the year, especially in light of, it's one thing if we aren't transferring money and everybody's using exactly what they have there, but having worked in schools for 1,000 years, there were many years that we had freezes happen, and I know you had mentioned that a couple finance meetings ago about maybe making some freezes to be able to cover these costs. So maybe Josh, we can have a general plan.
And what I can do once we do put together the summary of where we're at and the summary of what's happening, kind of a trend analysis of our utilities, what I can do then is do kind of a line-by-line forecast of where I think we're, and I think that's kind of what you were looking for earlier, is to see even if we said, okay, spending on this was going to be, less than planned, or for the line items that are going to go fully to plan for the full year, where are we going to end up, and where can we potentially, if there is no more spending on some discretionary items, where will that money come from? And I can certainly do that once we get the trend analysis on the utilities.
And yes, I can bring that in January.
Yeah, Candy, I would second your comments and would ask Josh, as you do this planning, what are the kinds of things that would trigger the town manager to request a spending freeze? Everything we're talking about tonight and at the last few meetings, there are pressures, there's going to be pressures and impacts on next year's budget. That's quite obvious. And so anything we can do in this year's budget to alleviate some of that pressure looking forward, I think is time well spent.
Well, and I think too, some of the pressure is within your current year that you're looking at. One of the things that I do note that in the budget, in the general fund budget, there is not a significant contingency line item that the Board of Selectmen adopts on an annual basis, which then leaves you very little cushion or very little room in instances like this that you cannot absorb. You can't absorb price increases. You can't absorb inflation. You can't absorb if you have a significant snow year. We don't have a significant contingency in our budget. That we don't even have 10%, I don't think, in our budget of a contingency line item that doesn't allow us to absorb cost overruns.
Well, we have that in the charter. The charter allows us emergency funds.
Right, I understand that, but within within the general fund budget, there isn't a contingency that allows you, without going out for emergency appropriations, that would allow you to, if there was.
I think the town would rather see an emergency appropriation than to have it built into a budget, because then they'd be overtaxed.
But also, knowing that these things are coming, there should be a plan for them. I mean,
Yeah, yes.
Like I'm pretty sure that you can look ahead, see what it is, and stop spending in certain areas.
Correct.
And then, of course, you had the unexpected revenue from the state, not that we want to rely on that, but you got to look at all, this is the time to, just before January, where everybody either implements freezes or says that these things are going to happen, and that comes from management.
Correct. And that's part of the reason why I've asked.
Come from this board.
Correct.
You guys.
And that's part of the reason why I've asked the budget analyst to start kind of tracking and just to keep you abreast of where we are too, that we have an idea and we can do some forecasts in terms of if these increases come down from Eversource, what are we looking at? Where are we going to have to cut some items or spend less money to try to cover all of these just incremental increases every single month?
Any other questions?
Just one line item that maybe I just keep missing it. In terms of revenue, with the solar farm on the Platte Hill, is there a revenue line item?
No. So what happens with all of the solar accounts, what happens every month, and that'll be part of the analysis for those electrical accounts that are tied to the solar farm accounts, you'll be provided with a summary. So how we get billed every month is we receive an Eversource bill. We receive a bill from LSE, which is the provider, the generator for the solar farm. On the LSE bills every month, it tells us. So, for example, let's say for the month of November, which is the last bill, I believe, actually we might have received only October because they're a month behind. So for October's LSE bill, it'll tell us what our generation charge is. But on the bill also, it will tell us what the credit is for that month. That credit will then come to us in the following month on our Eversource bill. So what I do is track them. So you have 3 pieces, and all of those 3 pieces are being charged to and credited to the electricity line items for those accounts that are tied. So there are the street lights. So let's just take street lights, for example. There's an Eversource charge, there's an LSC charge, and then there's a solar credit. And each of those three things are tracked independently on the general ledger in one account. So if anyone at any time looks at the account, you won't just see one big mishmash number in there. You'll see three separate line items for every single month. As long as we get the credits on a monthly basis, you'll see three line items for those. And that will be, I'll show you that when I give you the electricity. It's a little confusing sometimes, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible, just because it even confuses me some months to try to, as we're tracking it.
Thank you. No more questions? Thank you, Anne Marie. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the clerical union collective bargaining agreement, taking with us the town manager?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor? 6-0. We will be back after the first executive session. It is 8:01. Going to the blue room? Yes.
Enjoy some peace and quiet. Thank you, James.
Well, it's one and the same. The only people that can protect the lake are the people. still?
You're still on to it.
Okay, you didn't shut it off?
I don't start it off.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, she assessed all the cars at this high rate, and the cars were not appropriately rated because they didn't take into account mileage, they didn't take into account dents and dings, the tire wear, your engine wear, your brake wear, and everything else, and the condition of the vehicle. So, you know, you can appeal your cars, you can appeal your houses. Amen?
Is that new?
No, does he have a new one?
I don't think so. I know
I
that,
thought he was gonna do it the 15th.
I know he's got Alan Nero working on it, but I don't know if I haven't seen the proof. Usually that gets sent out. I haven't seen that yet.
Thought he was gonna have it by the 15th. It's all right. Things take time.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
When's the first day of winter? The 20th, tomorrow?
Winter solstice is the 21st, I think. Yeah, I think so.
So, I guess that'll say winter 2022 then. We went to Chick-fil-A after my boys' game today, up in Newington.
What do they play?
They played Manual Christian School.
Basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they lost, but they took it good. But they played good.
Good.
Yeah. When and I said, "You guys deserve Chick-fil-A." They're like, so my wife went too, and I was like, "Get whatever you want, girl." She goes, "Prices are expensive, girl." I go, "Get whatever you want." She got a kids meal. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, sorry." I'm like, "There's- where do we go? We don't go to Chick-fil-A that often because
Right.
it's so far away." And
It's-
there was actually,
It's good
there
food.
was no line, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Whereabouts did you go?
on the Berlin Turnpike.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they like to play. They're only 13, but they're doing good with
Yep.
basketball.
So the season is just starting then, right?
Yeah.
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 And they're what, freshmen?
No, they're 8th grade.
Eighth graders, okay.
They're on the JV.
Okay.
They have a varsity. They're expanding the school. So many kids want to get in there.
Oh, down in Torrington.
Yeah.
That's good. Should scrimmage against Marks?
Yeah, well, they usually do with the girls volleyball. They do scrimmage, Gilbert, and it gives them, Gilbert is more advanced, they have a lot more, it's a pool of, students, so it gives them good opportunity to practice and get a good, whipping,
Right.
athlete,
Who-
and they're,
Who's in your league then, Dave?
the schools, like down in Southington, all the Christian
Yep.
schools. So it's the Christian schools. But they do practice, against Gilbert once in a
Yep.
while.
Yep.
But I haven't seen them in basketball because, but I'm sure they have JV too because they got the 8th grade up there, right?
Yeah, I know I talked to Mark briefly, and I guess they struggle with numbers, though.
Oh, still?
Yeah.
Because James and Josh were in the league at Pearson. There's a lot of kids there.
Yeah, I think down that level,
Yeah, for recreation.
right. But I know that,
But once they get up there, they're not.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm hearing is,
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I mean, during the COVID, they were going down to Pearson to play basketball. Going up to Gilbert, get the hoops, and so that was good.
so they practice after school every day?
Um,
Oh.
That's, I told James, because James makes more layups than he makes points. Josh makes more points than he does layups, in the sense, going.
Right.
And, so James is a little smaller, but he's got all this energy. He's always been, Jimmy Neutron
So where do they play their home games then?
Well, they have a, gymnasium at TCA.
Right.
Torrington Christian Academy.
Yep.
But they've been playing the home games at the Armory because their works, they just started to have all these engineers and whatever else come in. Because the gymnasium that they have is gonna be turned into all classrooms.
Oh,
Yeah.
what are they gonna do for a gymnasium?
Well, they're gonna build in the back.
Oh, I see, okay.
Where the kids, the toddler, playscape is.
Mhm.
And they're gonna, so,
When is that happening?
starting now, they got the engineers up there.
Oh, really?
Looking at, getting it mapped out.
Yep.
Planning. So by next year, hopefully it'll be, spring started. And, but the influx of kids is so overwhelming.
That's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Oh, St. Anthony's closing. And then everything going on with, the other.
How many kids go down there?
How many are in the school?
Yeah.
I think almost 200.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's urgent. It's, they're lacking space.
And there's property out back then, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Yeah, they got.
Yeah, my God, you could kill yourself with this wire.
Well, I was worried about ruining the wire, stepping on it.
Yeah, we should probably tape that to the wall or something, huh?
Everything should be taped to the wall.
Or on elastic, those things that you
No,
pull out from
it
your.
just should be a channel you open and.
No, but for the cord to get to your computer, you
Oh,
could
right.
have it on one of those, like a.
Yeah, drill a
those
hole into the
like an old
table.
telephone cord,
Yeah.
attachment that stretches all the way into the other room so your parents can't hear you. On this one. You wanna hold that?
Yeah.
And then just
I come back with a plan.
Thank you.
You want to just
probably should be okay, right?
postpone? I mean, it will be fine if you. We are gonna.
Is it the whole 68? I guess look it up.
That's what I got the grant, which frees up 60,000 in their budget.
No, but is there still 30 days left?
Yeah. Because after this transfer, there should be.
Is that supposed to take for this summer, or that was for last summer?
This one last summer.
Oh, then we put that.
All right, it's 8:28. We are back from executive session. Can I have a motion?
So moved?
Thanks,
Is
Jonathan.
that 13D?
Oh, yep.
Just FYI. You can move it up if you want.
Yeah, we can leave it there. Number 10, correspondence. Anyone have anything? Number 11, boards and commissions.
Thank you, Todd. This evening, we're going to take the following action. The name David Lapointe was introduced last meeting to you. We've done our preliminary vetting, And I would like to place a nomination for appointment to the Board of Assessment Appeals on an alternate position with a term to expire in October of 2024, the name David Lapointe. And also this evening, we're seeing the name of Adam Quagliari, Adam, Quagliaroli, as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He's unaffiliated, he's looking for an alternate position for a term to expire in October of 2025. And we'll start the vetting process with Adam and come back with a recommendation at our next meeting. Also, this evening, would like to place in the nomination Allison Pierce as a member of the Board of Assessment Appeals. She's a Republican, looking for an alternate position, term to expire in October of 2024. And moving on down the page, in terms of an appointment, we're looking for a nomination, an appointment rather, for Allison Pierce as a member of the Retirement Administration Board. You saw the paperwork in the package. She's a Republican and looking for permanent membership with a term to expire in December of 2026.
So moved.
Thank you, Candace. Second?
Second.
Jack's got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, and we're also accepting, or we're not officially accepting, we're acknowledging the resignation of Leanne Marvin as a member of Inland Wetlands and Water Sources. She's a Democrat and was a permanent member, and her term would expire in April of 2024. So we appreciate Leanne's work on the commission and thank her for her service. And the current vacancies, it seems as though the list gets longer each meeting that we have. But just a quick review, Board of Assessment Appeals, we're looking to fill the alternate position, and we will do that with the action that we've taken earlier tonight and we'll take in our next meeting. Conservation Commission, looking for 2 regular members. Architectural Review Commission, looking for 1 or 2 alternates, and as needed. Laurel City Commission, looking for 5 members. Economic Development Commission, looking for 1 alternate member. Inland Wetlands, looking for 1 member. Planning and Zoning, looking for 1 member. Recreation Board, 1 member, and ZBA, 2 members. So there's plenty of opportunities for volunteers out there. Please step forward.
Thank you, Steve. Number 11, unfinished business. 12, unfinished business. Draft presentation of the draft employee handbook.
Thank you. So at our last meeting, I went through key points about the draft employee handbook. I know a hard copy was made available to all of you. It's been sent out by email. I am not going to go through those points again tonight because they've been gone over several times. But there are 2 things that I want to do. First is to share with you, there was a request at the last meeting for me to have talked to the town attorney about whether or not it is considered to be an invasion of privacy and it is outside the scope of the town to request and require that all members of the town staff report and disclose the different places of work that they may, or different jobs that they may accept outside of their service to the town of Winchester. I spoke with Kevin Nelligan at some length about it. From his perspective, and I share this perspective, the only way to ensure that that there are no concerns around employees double dipping, the only way to ensure that there are no concerns with the image that employees are presenting to the public, perhaps not in town hall, but certainly reflecting on the town of Winchester for anybody who knows that they may work here is to have that disclosure occur. It's really a legal protection in many ways to make sure that people have an opportunity and are required to disclose that information. And from our town attorney's perspective, the right thing to do is to require that disclosure and that it's permissible. So that's from him. Certainly, if there are any further questions, I can follow up with him about those.
Can you require after employment or just at employment?
At both. If any additional employment is received, is taken on by that employee outside of the town of Winchester, they would have to disclose it at that later date as well as when they are first hired on. In either case, he does not feel that it constitutes a violation of privacy because it's a condition of the job, and it's a condition of being a public servant. We're very open to the public. It's all very transparent, and as a requisite, anybody who is serving the town, and I think everybody here agrees that they should be a person of who is beyond ill repute, someone who is forging a good name for the town and the work that it does. And the only way to ensure that that's happening is to ask that employees disclose. Also for ethical purposes, how are we to have an ethics commission that's able to review whether there was perhaps inappropriate conduct if we don't have an understanding of what the different biases and points of contention could be in any given situation? All around, he advocated for the inclusion of that language in the policies. So that's the first thing that I wanted to report to you on.
Thanks for checking that.
No problem. The second thing that I want to do is give members of the board the opportunity to share other notes and comments that they had about the policies before they are to be tightened up and put into effect starting January 1st. I think the only other work that I really need to do is to go through and make sure that all of the page numbers are correct in the table of contents. But if there are no other comments, then I'll leave my work at that. And thank you all for taking the time to review this with me. I know it's been a process, and I appreciate it.
Seeing no other comments, we'll be moving on. You wanted to table this?
This requires a slideshow.
There's a lot of information tonight that's regarding your proposed line item transfer. How about I give a little bit of history about this, and then the board can decide whether it wants to table this or wants to move ahead with approval. As we've already discussed at your next meeting or at a meeting in January, in any case, I will have a plan where I come in and talk to you all about how we're going to address some of these electric charge overages. And I can do that at that later date, and perhaps you don't want to move forward with any line item transfers until you have that plan in front of you. That being said, within the Recreation Department this past year, a grant was received from the state of Connecticut that helped to cover a significant amount of operating costs for summer programs. This $30,000 represents only a portion of it, less than half of the amount that was received as part of that grant. And what that grant did was it paid for things that would have otherwise been in the operating budget, which then frees up money in our operating budget. So you have money in the recreation budget where you could make these transfers as they've been presented to finish up a number of different projects, as Tanya has reflected within her proposal to you, perhaps best represented on the third page. And I certainly believe that all of these projects are worth completing and are worth your consideration for a line item transfer. And that's why I put my name to it and signed off that this is the right way to go. I, however, understand that the board may be wary of making a line item transfer given the conversation that was had earlier. And I would be happy to talk to Tanya about what it means to push this off just a little bit longer.
Is there 38,000 then left? So if we got 68,000 from the grant, right? For the
Yes.
summer programs, and it was for the past summer, not the upcoming summer, like you said.
Right.
So it was the past summer. So they're asking to spend 30,000 of it, but there's still 38,000.
That's my understanding. To be clear, though, the 38,000, the savings is split over, it did go over that July 1st date. Not all of the summer programs occurred after the July 1 date. Some of the summer programs occurred before. So some of the savings that you're seeing won't appear in this year's financial audit. It will appear in the prior year's financial audit. But all in all, the over or $68,000 is going back into the general fund. This money is in this year's budget that can be reappropriated and transferred. Does that make sense? Because the program started in June. So there's a bit of money that's in the prior year.
Okay, so the money that's in the prior year has to go back to the prior year, right?
Yeah.
From the grant?
Right.
Right, so how much was that in the prior year? That gets back, out of the 68,000, how much has to go back into the general fund because it was for those specific hours of time in June? And so how much of the 68 is after that? And then how much is there between the 30,000 they're asking for and whatever it is now?
Out of the 12-week program, probably 2 occurred in June before that July 1st date.
Yeah.
So you're talking about times 68, probably $11,000 is represented in the prior year, and the remainder would be in this current year. So you have plenty of money
So 59 minus 30 leaves 29.
additional, in addition to these transfers, right? There should be
So
overages.
the 29 would cover, because there's gonna be, what I've learned about lights in my athletic director time, and obviously have been updated this past fall, is when you turn on the lights, there's a load cost, and the delivery cost for the lights is gonna go up. And we're running lights, in different fields or different buildings and stuff like that. So what's the cost between now and June 30th that can be absorbed by that extra money? So there would be 29, 27, 28?
That's good
That
approximation.
should cover it, right? So could we approve these light item transfers and you just hold them until you get that answer?
We could do that.
And then if it comes back that you don't have enough money, start asking which ones to take out?
Yep. We could do that, if everybody's comfortable with it.
Repeat it again exactly how you'd like to do that?
Well, it sounds like there's enough other money from the grant that could cover
Yeah.
electrical costs going forward. Because when you play softball at night,
Right.
those lights suck down a lot of electricity and stuff. And so if you know what the bill was from, last summer's, I don't know if you do, but you find out what the lights were last summer, add, whatever we think it's gonna do, or wait until January and know what it's gonna do, if it's gonna double, or if it's gonna go by 50% or whatever, and make sure we have enough money for that, and it should come out of the remainder of the grant funds, even if we transfer this. But the list of items for that list, some of them are, padding, some of them are concrete pads.
Right.
A concrete pad can't be poured right now anyway, it's gotta wait until, the weather. Also, is this gonna be done by an outside contractor, is this being done by Public Works? And where'd that money go for the Public Works thing? We still need that answer. But, so, I think if, we could approve the transfers of this money, they can't do the work right away, so if Josh all of a sudden finds out, whoa, wait a second, we need like 40,000 for lights, then he could cut out some of the,
Well, my understanding is that this is their list, we can't tell them where to spend the money.
No,
We're
we
only,
can't.
we're only taking their recommendation that this is where they would like to spend the money. For instance, I'd like to say, oh, how come you're not building a pickleball court? Or why don't you do something different with the money? But that's the role of the recreation department.
I didn't say to cut anything, I said for him.
Right. So I think what the proposal is,
That
what
we
you're
approve
thinking, you
these,
approve it,
and
but
if-
I hold it until I can guarantee that we're going to have enough of a surplus to make everything work this year. So I simply don't authorize the expenditures on these items, even though the transfer's gone through. We don't spend money on these projects until I verified.
You have to
So it's a little extra work, but it'll be okay.
Fair, okay, now I understand. Yeah, because we really don't have a right, I don't think we have a right to say to the Recreation Board, no, don't buy pads for the backstop or something. I don't think we can do that. We could just
Well,
say,
I do.
We approve capital items.
yeah,
So
This
we
is
could-
$30,000. It's not $9,000.
I know.
Wow, so.
I mean, I don't have a problem with them, like, deciding what to spend it on. I'm just saying that instead of just holding it right now, we can approve it, and then he has to just guarantee it.
That's fine. It's in your hands, then, Josh.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm on it.
Yeah, and I don't see any of these things being able to be done before the spring anyway, so there's plenty of time.
They might need to order some of the pads or
The
some of the
fencing,
other
maybe.
stuff, like in February.
Can we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the line item transfers for recreation as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jack. Discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. Item 22-63, refunds is recommended by the Collector of Revenue Services.
So you have two refunds in front of you tonight. One's motor vehicle, one's real estate. The motor vehicle is because of a certificate of correction. The real estate is because of an overpayment. The total amount is $825.36, and I recommend that it be approved as presented.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Jonathan. Further discussion?
Josh, how come you don't sign these forms?
I signed them after. I certified that it occurred, that you approved it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, I don't want to approve.
Oh, I see.
I don't want to approve.
It says it's
yeah.
approved for payment, that's when you sign it. Got it. Thank you very much.
All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. Item 22-64, resolution for Community Investment Fund 2030 application.
So this is, I was talking before about a state grant where we had applied for phase 3 of the Sue Grossman Greenway. This was the Community Investment Fund. You might remember it from several months back. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we were told by the state that they will not approve funding for the Sue Grossman through this program until we've received and secured more easements along the potential path for the Sue Grossman Greenway. However, there's another round of funding that's become available. This program, it's the Community Investment Fund 2030. It's provided by the state government to foster economic development in historically underserved communities. So we have been identified as one of those historically underserved communities. We are eligible to participate. And we have a proposal that right now suggests that the town-owned building located at 44 Elm Street could be renovated and rented out to area nonprofit that provide human services to local residents. In order for this to even be a possibility, in order for this to continue to be considered to any extent, major improvements are needed at the site. So what I'm asking is for the Board of Selectmen to consider approving the attached certified resolution, which is provided for you, so that we can go forward with a Community Investment Fund 2030 application that would help make much-needed repairs to the 44 Elm Street building, which would provide the town with a level of increased capital, which in turn would increase the value of the holdings that you have and perhaps turn that site into something that's really usable and a great asset to the community. So there's no required match for this program. There's a minimum request of $250,000, and there's no maximum. We can request this, you could request anything you want. They're not going to approve you over a certain point, but you can request anything you want. So what I'm suggesting, and there's attached information that you can see within here, we have very basic specs that have been done pro bono by Alan Borghese, and I really want to thank him for his help in identifying what some of the needed improvements at that site would be. It includes a roof, it includes work to the pavement outside, it includes an elevator to make it ADA accessible if it was going to be a public building and the like. You can read through all of that information. And at the end of the day, it's my hope that you would authorize us to apply for a grant not to exceed $1.299 million. Again, there's no match required, so this is no stakes, no risk opportunity for us to take on that would greatly improve a site that the town currently owns and give us some utility in figuring out what's next in its story.
Where is the information on the, any work on the driveway?
On the driveway, I
there any-
believe that there's a line item that identifies an amount of money, but in any case, the driveway, it would be a simple reconstruction on the driveway.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering about the multiple entrances and exits and things like that, if that's, but that's, what's the best, if we're redoing Elm Street, what's the best, it's a terrible corner. It's like a.
Understood.
It's a 10-person corner there, you got exits coming out of there, you've got, Elm Street, you've got Center, and you've got the other, two other roads. So, just, obviously, that wouldn't be spelled out here, but it would be something to consider before, whatever the ultimate use of the building is to make sure that the safety, however we want the traffic flow to occur at that area, because Elm Street is crazy.
Right. Another efficiency that could be found, we do own the parking lot next door
Right.
to 44 Elm Street, so trying to find more efficiencies with parking between those two, if this was to remain under town control, would really be important.
So that address is, it's not Center Street, it's 44 Elm.
It is 44 Elm.
Got it.
The Bank of America building is
Yep.
44 Elm Street. And my apologies, in looking through this, it doesn't look like, I'm remembering now the conversation that I had with Tom, our budget analyst, grants manager. The number that Alan Borghese quoted us is 1.152 million. The additional amount that gets us up to the 1.299 is the roof and the paving. So those are the numbers that you won't see in Alan Borghese's work, but that have been added into the budget as a part of the grant request. That will be itemized within the grant request.
So we'll get another copy of the grant request with the itemized numbers in there, got it.
Right, and so what needs to be approved tonight is the certified resolution that's in your packet that just authorizes us to make an application not to exceed 1.299 million. And the recommended motion's provided on the action request form.
But I only see 875 million.
What?
It's-
Oh, 875 million.
But I don't see any million, I don't see in the motion the dollar amount.
Well, that's because you're adopting the attached resolution, which
Oh,
has the
there's a-
dollar amount included.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
At the 2 points.
Oh, I
above.
see the resolution.
So I have a question.
Yep.
So we applied for this, and it's being applied for, and probably with the support of these agencies.
So we
Right.
would apply for it independently as the town, so that the agencies are not required to be a part of whatever the
well-
final result is.
Okay. So they're not, so what happens if we get the grant, and all of a sudden we decide that we want to do something else with the building, and not rent it to these agencies? What happens?
Two things, but no matter what, it starts with a conversation with the state where we say, hey, here's our other vision for it, this is what we want to do, we have this money awarded. Are we allowed to use that money for it? They might say yes, and we might be able to use that money in the spirit of our other vision that we have between those two dates, or they might say no and we have to give it back. But either way, it's okay to apply.
And then how long a period of time do we have to rent it to these other agencies?
There's no
If we get the
requirement.
grant, so,
There's no requirement.
once the building's done, then,
They could move out the next year. That's my understanding of this program as it currently stands. I don't think that's the spirit of the program, but there's
No,
nothing
it's-
barring.
but we don't have that, we don't have that information in front of us, that's why I'm asking.
Well, and there's no
Is-
information about it on the state's website. They have not provided any
But do we
strings.
put that into our, I'm assuming that this isn't the only thing we apply for with the grant. Isn't there a narrative or something that goes with it?
Oh, yeah, there's more information that we will provide, and we will describe the image of the building and that we want it to be publicly accessible and ADA compliant and so
Right,
on.
but we're not saying how long or that it's
I don't
definitely
have
done.
numbers in mind that I was planning to share with the state. I was planning to share the vision and say that that's the goal and move forward with it, and if they choose to award it, we'd have to, perhaps they want to negotiate it, how long it would be, and perhaps they wouldn't, but we crossed that bridge when we got to it. This is a very competitive program, so there's only a slight chance we'd be considered and awarded
I know
anyways.
you got a lot of players on the backside, so.
We do. I'm
Sorry, go ahead.
confident, I'm excited, but there's still an uphill battle.
And this would also include storage for,
Well, it's shared town
Decorations.
usage.
right?
Yes, shared town usage of the space and keeping it under town control by having this grant money fix it up, not on the taxpayers' backs.
we have a motion?
Josh, I'm certainly not against going after money that can be granted to us for usage. And as we've talked about, this building, if it does get fixed up with this grant money and we use it for something else and we want to sell it, makes it more usable and more sellable. But I wrote down this over the weekend when I was reading this and saying, can a grant be asked for if the legislative body, us, right now, has not approved the use of the building?
Yes, because you hopefully will have authorized the application of the grant. It's much like, so we've applied for and we received, for example, the Sue Grossman grant from DEEP many years ago. That was before easements were acquired for those parcels. That was before there was any conversation with zoning and inland wetlands about 824 referrals. So the approvals don't have to be in place. Sometimes they help. But there's nothing on the state side that requires the legislative body to have acted in that manner. All they require is that you have authorized me to sign off on an application going into their office. That indicates enough of an interest from their perspective to consider the application.
I would just think any grant proposal, not only do they want to know what you're going to do, obviously, but that you have legislative approval to do it.
Understood. But in this case, I actually know firsthand that we have another firm here in town up at the Winstead Health Center. They applied for, as the nonprofit that controls the Winstead Health Center up on Spencer Street, they applied for and received over $400,000 from this program in the last round, which was the first round of funding, to complete a study that will help look to make it a veterans center, which is a wonderful thing. They have not gone in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission to receive different approvals for that site. It's still very much in the planning phase. The state didn't see need to have those formal approvals in place before
Okay,
it
just
went forward.
don't want to get caught.
Understood.
We're already accepting a grant that comes in and it's useful, but wait a minute, it's lacking something.
Well, and that's the other thing. So when the grant is awarded, you will still have to vote to accept the offer. So whatever that offer looks like, they might want to negotiate, just like we were talking about. They might say, this is no strings attached, please fix up this building and make it publicly accessible.
Okay.
And we can figure that out when we get to it.
Todd, I would move that the Board of Selectmen adopt the attached DECD resolution as presented in support of making improvements to the site at 44 Elm Street as part of the Community Investment Fund 2030 grant program.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Candy. Any further discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Item D, vote to accept the clerical union collective bargaining agreement. Do you want me to go over this quick, or? Yeah, you can.
Just very quickly for the public, this contract negotiation was a year and a half in the making. It very much mirrors the supervisor's contract that was recently adopted by and ratified by both parties. So this does follow the same general wage increase lineup of all under 3%, 2.5s, and 2.25s throughout. The contract extends through June 30th, 2025. There are increases in the amount that union members will be paying on health insurance premiums, and this also represents a merger between our clerical union and our dispatchers union. There are two members of the former dispatchers union. They had not had a contract since 2018. And then there are members of our clerical union who are happy to accept those individuals into their union. So we're consolidating the number of unions that we're bargaining with, and we worked very hard to make sure that everybody within this process was accounted for. And I think that we've struck a very fair bargain. So I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen adopt the collective bargaining agreement with the clerical union as presented.
Do we have a motion?
I would move that the Board of Selectmen adopt the collective bargaining agreement by and between the Town of Winchester and the United Public Service Employees Union, July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2025.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jack. Any further discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Moving on to item number 14, citizens' comments.
Can you read out the time, please? No, not that time, but what it says on the public comments.
The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and may speak only once.
David LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winston, Connecticut. I just want to say I hope I'm glad that the town manager is not leaving us. You're not leaving us, right?
That was something I was going to share during the upcoming section of the agenda, but that is true. I am not.
Oh, good. Because these good selectmen had good faith in you to stay, and I guess the contract says that you have 30 days to give them notice. That's what I was told by Selectman Bork. But anyways, I don't know. I don't have the contract in front of me. But I think that it behooves, as you were saying about public employees here in Winston, to let the selectmen know if you're going to be leaving. Of course, as a public citizen and as an advocate for those who can't speak for themselves, I have had many interactions with you, and I feel that some of the time it's been good, some of the time it hasn't. But c'est la vie, such is life, as Steve would say. The thing is that we all have to work together, and sometimes people have to open their mouth. I don't like people being in public positions that don't open their mouth, because people have to say something. And it's good, even if the opposition is saying things. And that's a good thing, because that's how we learn. We learn other people's opinions, and we learn to work with people. And that's a good thing. But in regards to the building that's in question on Elm Street, that building was purchased for $1. I believe it's $7,000 to $9,000 in tax revenue that's been lost over the years. The town of Winchester should not be in the real estate business. Let's leave it to Dave Santarani and all the other real estate agents, Kelly Sullivan and all the rest, Mr. Demore. They should be in the real estate agency business, not the town manager or the Board of Selectmen. I know it's before your time, you're trying to work with what you got, but that building, I was hoping, as a public citizen, I know other citizens, as well as people in the police department, were hoping that that would be the new police station. Having served in law enforcement for 21 and a half years, the thing is that our police station is inadequate in many, many ways. I'm sure the chief has told you that. Having worked in that field on a different end, and being actually in the cell and in the police station, seeing that it's inadequate, the building on 44 Elm Street should be used for a new police station. And I think that would be a great asset for both the community and the officers that serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Item 15, Selectmen's comments and reports.
I concluded a meeting with the Board of Rec this month, and I just wanted to go over a summary. Lance Hansen talked with the board about Tadros Pond and how the homeless may affect it, and there are plans that there may be a subcommittee on Tadros Pond. I am also aware of the November 30th presentation. I was there, and they are wishing, as a board, to know the status of the dam in real time, if that's fine.
Anyone else?
I'm concerned about the light fixture that apparently that was just hit. So I'd like to know that purchasing has already gone ahead and purchased a replacement pole and light.
On my to-do list.
Oh, good, thanks. And the insurance is applied for against the individual. Thank you. And if they've done any other damage to the medians as well, if they've, you know, gone diagonally across, you know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
If I know this is time for selectmen's comments, but I did want to wait to this point in the meeting to share with the public that after going through a process that I know was very public, and I appreciate everybody in the community bearing with me, especially since I do have some personal reasons for why I had opened myself up to the possibility of potentially taking another job. I want everybody to know that it has absolutely nothing to do with the town of Winchester, why I explored that. I've had wonderful experiences here, and I'm very excited to continue to have wonderful experiences here, working with all of you to help transform the town into just the best version of itself. So I thank you all for bearing with me. I will be staying here in Winchester, and very happy and excited to do so. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Glad to have you. And then lastly, this past weekend, Winchester participated in Wreaths Across America. We were one of 3,400 cemeteries across the country where we laid 300 wreaths on the tombstones of veterans at Forest View Cemetery. It takes place every December, the third Saturday in December, so we look forward to seeing you all next year and participating. With that, can I have a motion to go to executive session on the possible sale of town-owned property?
Seconded?
Need a
Oh,
motion?
wait, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace. All in favor? 6-0. And it is 9:05. Yeah, we're taking Josh and Lance
Nice to meet you, Lance.
to the blue room.
Candy, this might be a longer one, a longer meeting.
Yes, maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Come and get me.
I will.
Thank you.
I'll be the Steve to Sheila. No problem.
Thank you.
They don't have anything else after this, right?
No, that's it.
to spend double, because I don't buy.
I only
bought a
buy one
lottery
there
ticket.
over 900 million. Thank you very much.
Hey, Lance.
Bet you're running away.
Clock.
It is 9:51. We are back from executive session with no action to take. Steve?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next meeting, Tuesday, January 3rd.
It'll be only our meeting if there's no.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Jack.